Okay, guys. So you ever sit back and question the choices you've made that have gotten you to this point in your life? There was a 20-year-old me who, if he'd been told I would be standing on a stage talking to people about spirituality, would have been very amused by that. So here we go. We're going to start with some Ernest Holmes wisdom here because it's a good place to start. It's good to go back to something that we can all be grounded in, we can all kind of agree on before I go way off the rails and start claying this place up. Here we go. All right, so Ernest Holmes wrote, "This law which exists at the center of your being is creative. You use the same creativeness which brought the planets into being, the same creativeness which produced everything that is. ... To think is to create. You've already been thinking and creating. Now you wish to create good instead of evil, abundance rather than limitation. Whatever you believe to be true about God, declare to be the truth about yourself. Know that the power within you, which is God, is the law of good, establishing right action in your life. ... To think is to create. You are a thinker, therefore you are a creator. Consequently, you live in a world of your own creation." That's Ernest Holmes from Living the Science of Mind. All right, so I have always struggled in my life with the idea of spirituality and with the idea of religion and things deeper than myself because, frankly, I really enjoyed my shallow wells. But here we are. So, what does the word spiritual mean to a hard-lined rationalist like myself? I'll answer that question for you. Spirituality, for me at least, is the connection to the creative principle inside of us. It's our innate need to express our limitless potential. If religion is the need to appease a God outside of ourselves, spirituality is the need to find the God within us. Above all, Science of Mind as a philosophy convinces us of our incredible power over the universe, over our lives, and over our understanding of our place in the world, precisely because it's not magic. Because it faces reality on its own terms. And this is the part where I diverge from, some people who really into spirituality. I'm very much grounded in the real world, or at least I try to be. So if that is hard for you, just bear with me for a second. We can get back to the magic stuff later. But by facing reality on its own terms, the Science of Mind robs us of our chief source of comfort, which is our belief that we can relax into pain, sadness, and the meekness we perceive in our lives. So my talk is called "With Great Power Comes Great Responsibility." I don't know if you guys are familiar with this this statement. It comes from the first ever appearance of Spider-Man in comics. Yeah. Spider-Man's pretty cool, a big fan. At the end of the comic, right, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, has just watched his Uncle Ben die because he decided not to assert his responsibility. So there's this realization he makes at the end of the comic that is this. Later on, the quote goes back into Uncle Ben's mouth, and one of the last things he said. But it's not originally how it happened. It happened in a descriptive pain at the end of the comic strip. And a comic critic, and I don't remember his name right now because I forgot to write it down because that's who I am, said that this is the greatest moral imperative to ever come out of pop culture. Sorry, I need some tea. And I believe that to be true. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's on the screens here, if you lose track of that. But it's an important thing to remember. What the critics said again was, this is the greatest moral injunctive to come out of popular culture. which is cool. All right, so we're going to talk about this a little bit. We're going to talk about different powers and the responsibilities that come out of them. The first power I want to talk about is we create what we affirm. Now, that means, to me at least, the assumptions we make about the world will be reflected in our experience of the world. What we believe to be true is true. Now, there's a scientific principle that talks about this, which is called confirmation bias. You might have heard about it. It means that whatever we believe to be true, we're going to find evidence to support that. It's one of the things that science works really hard to get away from. You got like double-blind studies and everything to make sure nobody has any beliefs about what's going on, so that whatever comes out is just the objective truth, right? But we're not really talking about the objective truth right now. We're talking about belief. Now, the world is too complex for our brains. We're constantly being bombarded with information from everywhere. And last time I did a talk, we did a little experiment where you looked at the head of the person in front of you and noticed things that you would not normally have noticed, despite the fact that you were looking right at them the whole time. Because there's all this information coming into our brains all the time through our eyes and our ears and touch and taste and smell and whatever extra senses you got going on. And we have to selectively process that information, which means our brain privileges information that makes the world seem less complex, right? Whatever it is that pulls complexity out of that equation, our brain brings right to the front, because our brain wants to be able to process what's going on, right? It wants to find a path through all the nonsense. Therefore, the information it privileges is the information that agrees with the beliefs we already have. So, this gives us a responsibility, right? Our power, we create what we affirm. Our responsibility here is to let go of the beliefs that make us, quote, right. Right? We need to foster beliefs that make us happy and effective, because that's what we want to be, right? Some of us want to be right, and that's, I guess, important on some level, right? We want to understand the objective truth, but what we really want is to be happy and to be good at being us. So you need to start fostering the beliefs that support that. Now, if our beliefs create our realities, we have limited responsibility, not very much responsibility, to believe only what's objectively true. It's going to be there anyway. We don't have to worry about it. Objective reality exists whether we like it or not. We don't have to spend time on that a great deal, right? We need to believe the things that make our lives better. Now, I talked about this a little bit last time I talked to you. I have this belief I'm trying to foster in reincarnation, right? Not because it's important to me whether or not it's literally true, but because living as though it's true protects me from crippling regret and indecision. So, if I believe this, I'm willing to make chances that might not work out because I can just do something different next time around. It's okay. Oh, wait, hold on. Sorry. More stuff on the back. And it allows me to believe that the obstacles that are in my life, the things that I come up against that I don't feel like I have any control over, were put there for a reason to challenge me, to make me try harder rather than to make me give up. They're a conscious choice that maybe somewhere along the line I made in order to make myself stronger. And working from that makes things work better for me. So it's a good thing for me to believe. Here we go. So this belief allows me to face hardship with gratitude and push through the things that are going to make me quit. Now, I choose to believe in abundance because it helps me to step out of competition. I want you to thrive. And I'll do what I can to help you thrive, because if you're thriving, then I can work with you to build a better sandbox in which we can all thrive. If I'm competing with you, we can't do that. We're stuck in the same sandbox, just trying to get the most sand. But there's a bunch more sand outside of the sandbox. We can bring it in if we work together. It's good. So I choose to believe the things that I create will touch the emotions and improve the lives of others, because believing that helps me to create things. If the things I'm making are necessary to the happiness of another person, then I have to make them. That's my responsibility. Therefore, I go out and I make them. I have a responsibility to put myself in the things that I create. I don't write stuff that tells my audience what they want to hear. They already know that stuff. I write what I have to say because it was born of my own experience and perspective, which no one has access to otherwise. If my life is worthwhile, and it is, the things it has taught me are also worthwhile. I repeat, I have a responsibility. I wrote down, I repeat on here. What can you do? I have a responsibility to foster beliefs that make me effective, to make me do the work, feel confident, feel important, and face my life with joy. You have a responsibility to foster beliefs that make you effective, to make you do the work, feel confident, feel important, and face your life with joy. A power we have. We can do, be, and have anything we want, which is terrifying. Science of Mind teaches us that none of this stuff out there is real. Our personalities, our jobs, our fanciness and flaws, none of that's real either. We're all one. It's all one. Everything is God. Everything is energy. The universal law of the universe is love, and whatever thoughts we feed into it come back to us as experience. I mean, it's great news, right? But, okay, this is where it gets a little dark, so stay with me. We're going to come out on the other side. Just stay with, we're just going to go in this tunnel. On the other side, there's light on the other end of the proverbial tunnel, right? So, the problem with this power that we can have and be anything we want, is existential dread. Sylvia Plath wrote in The Bell Jar, this is probably my favorite passage in all of literature, right? It is. I saw my life branching out before me like a green fig tree. From the tip of every branch, like a fat purple fig, a wonderful future beckoned and winked. I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind which of the figs I would choose. I wanted each and every one of them, but choosing one meant losing all the rest. And as I sat there, unable to decide, the figs began to wrinkle and go black. And one by one, they plopped to the ground at my feet. Now, humankind famously faced an existential crisis after Friedrich Nietzsche, who is probably the greatest philosopher to have ever lived, wrote the three most prescient words of the 20th century, God is dead. And then the 2 world wars proved to a lot of people, in Europe especially, that that was true. After that, the script that religion had given to these people to live by was gone, for them at least, right? They had to make their own way in the world, and the church was the structure of European life in a very real way. And now, people had to figure out what to do with their lives now that their primary focus had shifted from doing what God wanted them to do and what would get them into heaven into making the most of a life that was by necessity nasty, brutish, and short. There was no clear, consistent message of right or wrong. And Dostoevsky wrote in The Brothers Karamazov, "What will become of men then, I asked him, without God and immortal life? All things are permitted then. They can do what they like." And there's some obvious problems with this idea. First of all, a lot of people mistake the idea there's no clear message of right and wrong with there's no such thing as right or wrong. And then they do terrible things. Second, a lot of people, without some authority figure to tell them what to do, and this is really the one that gets me in the gut, do nothing at all. The existentialist philosophers dealt with this problem by asserting that it doesn't actually matter, that life is meaningless in essence, because we can create our own meaning choose a path through life that makes sense to us, and live authentically. Now, this is the solution and the outlook on life that currently provides the structure of most of the stuff in our life. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's nice. If you go to therapy, your therapist is going to teach you to choose a path through life and live authentically. And your life is going to be significantly better for that. Now, we, however, in this philosophy, do not live in a universe without God. Right? We live in a universe that is God. Here we go. I lost my place there for a second. So, okay, but there's some similarities between a universe without God and a universe that is God. Our God doesn't tell us what to do and what not to do. I don't know if you guys have noticed this around there, but there's not a whole lot of moral injunctions in this philosophy, right? It tells us that as humans, we have absolute creative power and we can use it however we choose. And it tells us if our choices are making us miserable, we should probably make different ones. There's the great moral injunction of the science of mind right there. If our choices make us miserable, we should make different choices. There's a good moral injunction for you. I lost my place again, guys. All right. Also, it's all love anyway. It doesn't really matter in the end. It's love. It's good. So, what are you doing with your power? Are you happy? Are you content? Are you living the perfect life that's yours to reach out and grab? I know I'm not quite there yet, but why not? It's because of existential dread, which is where it all comes full circle. We're going to peek back in the tunnel a little bit. We're going to come back. It's going to be all right. Now, in a world where I can do anything, how do I know that anything I choose to do is worthwhile? How do I know that's the fig to choose? How do I know it's the best I have in me? I have limited time, right? Even though we can choose to believe anything we want, we choose to have beliefs that cripple us. Why? It's because it saves us from committing to a path. Right? It keeps us playing small, as Marianne Williamson put it. I'm not going to put the whole quote in here because you guys have heard it like 17,000 times in your life, every time you go to a graduation or something. And it's not safe to have all the power in the universe and no one to tell us how to use it. We might screw it up. So we have a responsibility with all this power. And our responsibility is to do it anyway. Our responsibility is to reject violently any thought that comes forward that doesn't support the idea that we're powerful and worthwhile. In fact, you can use that as a test in your life. If a thought comes forward, and they do, you can ask yourself, can that thought be true in a universe where I'm powerful and worthwhile? If the answer is no, the thought is bunk and you can throw it away. Now, this doesn't mean you're infallible, right? You will make mistakes. And as you start moving forward as someone who's powerful and worthwhile, you will get valid feedback that you don't want to hear. You'll also get feedback that isn't valid, and you can apply it to that test above, right? If you are powerful and worthwhile and the feedback doesn't allow for that, it's wrong, and you can ignore it. Now, you need to remember that you're powerful enough to accept that you can make mistakes. And you need to remember that you're worthwhile enough to make changes in your beliefs and behavior as you learn that they're not serving you. Next responsibility, create something. Figure out what you want and manifest it with your actions and belief. Use prayer or whatever tool you've got as a tool to solidify your beliefs, clarify your intentions, and make sure you're paying attention to the right things. That's what prayer does. It shuts up the stuff that you shouldn't pay attention to. And then take the first step toward whatever success looks like for you. Now, it doesn't matter if you're moving towards some grand purpose or not, as long as you're aiming at something you want. If you approach the pursuit as someone who's powerful and worthwhile, you'll either A, get the thing, or B, learn why you didn't want the thing. which is just as much of a victory because it allows you to change direction and keep moving forward. Next responsibility, keep moving forward. As your purpose becomes clear, you can let go of the things you've picked up along the way that don't support your purpose. And you can find a deeper well and keep moving forward. Now, we, as people who are in this philosophy, who embrace this philosophy, know that the universe and God and love are the exact same things. We also know that for any one of us to be born into this universe is ridiculously unlikely. Right? Think about that for a second. Think about your heritage, right? Hundreds of thousands of people die without ever having children, right? Your parents and your grandparents and your great-grandparents and their great-grandparents and their great-great-great-great-great-grandparents didn't. They all managed to reproduce. And going back in time, that becomes more and more unlikely, right? You are here for a reason. Right? You're here because you beat ridiculous odds. And that means if we're in this universe, or if we've ever been in this universe, or if we ever will be in this universe, then we're worthy to be in this universe, which means we're worthy of love, because that's the same thing as the universe. Right? Love has chosen us, which means we're worthy of the creative power of the universe, which is the same thing as the universe, and the same thing as love, and the same thing as God, and the same thing as all of those things, which means we're worthy to use that power, which means we have a responsibility to use that power. All right, but wait, some of you are thinking, oh, I didn't ask to have that power. I didn't ask for this responsibility, but of course you did. That's why you have it. That's how the law works. Remember, right? If you have something, it's because you asked for it. That's hard. Okay, now, go on out there and make stuff happen. Hazel, you want to come up and pray for us?
And so let's take this into prayer right now. For I know that there is only one power, and there is only one presence. And this powerful presence is within each and every one of us. And so as we celebrate our union with all that is, by whatever name you give it, we recognize that we are each co-creators. And so we celebrate a new way of thinking, a new way of being, a new way of doing and acting. I recognize that whatever shadows occur in our life are dissipated and go back into the nothingness from which it emerged. For just like the eclipse tomorrow, when parts of this earth will be in shadow, we recognize that that light is always shining brightly. As it says in the book of Luke, to he who much is given, much will be required. And yes, Spirit has given us so much love, so much joy, so much happiness that is always at our fingertips, just waiting to be experienced. And yes, much is required from us to shine that light beautifully, to share that love magnificently, to recognize our oneness not only with Spirit, which is divine love, but to recognize our oneness with all of humanity, with every life form, whether it be two-legged or four-legged or in the oceans, the waters, in the sky above that we know as the universe. For it is all God. And therefore, we recognize our union and oneness with all of it, that we embrace who we are and celebrate this new day of awakening, how joy-filled we are, knowing the truth of our being, of who we truly are, the offspring of spirit. And so therefore I recognize with great gratitude this wonderful experience that we call life, and to experience in this physical form on this planet is a wonderful way for each of us to just share that clarity and that infinite wisdom that is always guiding us, directing our footsteps, always to our highest good. And so with that, I now can just say thank you and release it into this universal law, that heart and mind of God that is always manifesting according to our beliefs. And with that, I say thank you, I let it go, and so it is.